Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107.1. Joining us this afternoon, a regular guest on the program, and I do appreciate it because this is a big story, one that, quite frankly, can involve our immediate community of Camp Lejeune. And I say that with a great deal of concern and prayer that it doesn't happen. And that, of course, is to talk about the situation in Eastern Europe, particularly Ukraine. And the situation is ramping up significantly to a point that, well, it may involve world issues as well because of the effort by the Russians to stop any grain shipments out of the Ukraine. We'll get into that as well. And so as we begin the program, Pastor, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Lockwood. So good to be here with you.
Well, I do appreciate it. All right, let's talk about the circumstances. I saw a story. We're going to get to the situation in Russia in a moment, but I saw a story where apparently the Ukrainians are making some headway in their counteroffensive, the Ukrainian army. What have you heard? What's the news there?
They certainly believe so, the
Right.
average Ukrainian person, that they are taking back. And some reports I've heard was about half of what Russia had taken
Whoa.
to start with.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's totally true or not, but that's the wordage that I've been getting from people over there. So they do feel good about that, and they do feel good that there are drones hitting Moscow and different locations
Right.
now, taking the war to them.
Well, all right, since you brought that up, I was going to leave that for a moment, but what are you hearing? And by the way, let me just refresh for the memory of our audience, but definitely some of those who do not know. Pastor Whaley has spent 15 full years in that region of the world: Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Russia. And living in Russia. And as a matter of fact, we had a guest from Ukraine visiting us. She's now an immigrant and seeking asylum. And the two of them initiated conversation in Russian. So your Russian's fairly, it's still with you?
Part of it.
Part of it. Okay. So what do you hear from your Russian connections, your friends in Russia, related to the recent drone attacks? In one case, it closed down, damaged a building not far from the airport, apparently, in Moscow, no less, Moscow. So what are you hearing from your friends about the events now that these attacks have been, I want to say, been perpetrated on Russian territory?
My Russian friends will not put anything in print on Telegraph or Facebook or anything of that nature, but when we have FaceTime conversations or other types of conversations like that, they're more willing to speak. They say on the national media that there really has not been anything brought up about those drones coming from Ukraine.
Really?
Doing damage. Mm-hmm.
All right. So they're not getting a lot of information. This leads to a very important conversation. We'll get back to Ukraine here in a moment, but I want to focus on Russia. There are concerns that there might be a coup, that Vladimir Putin might be replaced. And one of the concerns that has been expressed is that his replacement may be more dangerous, more volatile, more violent than Vladimir Putin. Is there any indication from your sources about the potential transfer, I'll use that term, or transition in leadership?
People in Ukraine are hoping that there would be a transfer, but you're exactly right. You don't know who you're going to get. Is it better to have somebody you know or somebody
the devil you know,
don't
the devil
know?
you don't know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other aspect of this, apparently the members of the oligarch and his close friends are a little frustrated with him. My question is that frustration a matter of they're tired of this ongoing battle, they would just like to pack it up and leave, or they're tired of it not being prosecuted in a more volatile, violent way, even possibly using a nuclear armament?
I think for the most part tired that it hasn't gone as quickly as they all wanted it to go, and it's not over with.
But you know,
yet.
but the other side of this is the financial impacts on Russia, and I know that the country has propped up its economy, sold its oil reserves at relatively low prices to those countries that would still buy it. India being one of them, I might add. But this is all, if you will, built on sticks, and if these sticks starts to crumble, the house will crumble. So what are your friends saying about their economy?
Well, that's 700,000 to 1,000,000 people that left.
Already left, yep.
And then now they're recruiting again, using everything that's happened with the Wagner Group, recruiting again and wider age groups. So there's
Right. Yes, I did see that.
so there's more people trying to leave the country now, and so that's done a tremendous amount for the economy.
Okay, one of the things we don't understand here, you know, it's an authoritarian government. What is to protect? What's to, keep them? Well, actually, why is Vladimir Putin not able to tighten the country down, lock it down? There's got to be obviously some, I guess, some government agencies who are facilitating these departures and things of this nature.
That's correct. And the 700,000 plus that left before really left at the very beginning
Right.
before Russia cracked down on that. And those that are leaving now, my understanding, are those on that wider age level on either side.
Are they sneaking out of the country?
Yes, sir.
They are.
Or thinking that was going to happen and left beforehand.
Is there any momentum, any means for the general populace to force a change?
Ukrainians are hoping that. I mean, I'm hoping that.
But
Whether that's
you lived in Russia, is it? You told me something. Let's talk about this. You were talking about the apartment complexes, and you said something that really caught your attention about those apartment complexes. What was that?
apartments are very small, basically 2 rooms, and you'll have 3 or 4 generations living in those 2 rooms. But always, if you look up in the middle of the room or the wall that connects to the next apartment, there's a hole in the wall at the very top. It's probably a foot long and 8 inches or so wide. And you can see when the lights go off and on, you can hear the people in the next apartment talking. It's very obvious. Now, all those were built
Under Stalin.
under Stalin and that time. But I mean, it was to tattletale on each other.
Okay.
And the government emphasizes that all the time, is that you want to tattletale on each other.
And the other thing you reminded me was that there's only one entrance, one exit.
When you go the first time, you're just so excited about seeing everything, but the longer you're there, you start realizing in all these large apartment complexes, there's really one entrance and one exit, and there's a big gate that's there that's always open these days, but it's easily shut, and then you've got the whole apartment complex.
You can control the entire environment. All right, we're talking with Pastor Patrick Whaley. The economy in Russia, has it shown any changes since the...
It's going down and has steadily kind of gone down this last month or so, and especially since the Wagner Group's situation. And one thing I've been hearing that the Russia wants to negotiate on is the SWIFT in banking.
Right, exactly.
Which is very, very important in getting funds transmitted all around the world.
Okay. You bring up an interesting comment about the efforts on the part of Russia to open the door for financial issues. Now, the other aspect of that associated with that, I think, is the possibility of Russia suing for peace. What do you know? And we're going to shift now to Ukraine. What is the potential of that? And if they were to sue for peace, again, this is speculative on your part, what would the Ukrainians insist on?
What they've always said is they want their entire country pre-2014, including
that's
Crimea
Crimea.
and the Donbass area,
That's Crimea.
back, in which Russia has been not willing to even negotiate that. Russia has. Go ahead.
You've got portions of Ukraine that have been Russian now for
since 2014.
14. Would those populace, would those indigenous, I'll use that word, indigenous people be interested in rejoining Ukraine?
It's about 50-50.
Really?
And I am on the Russian equivalent to Facebook, VK. Not everybody's willing to talk to me all the time, but I do get their messages out. And there's a number of the folks that I know very well that were in our churches and our communities that are having the Russian flags and excited about that. There's others that I know that will talk to me and contact me that very much wants to rejoin Ukraine.
We're talking about Methodist churches, right?
Yes.
Have they stayed part of the Methodist?
Correct, but they're no longer part of the Ukrainian Methodist Church.
Okay.
They're part of the Russian Methodist Church.
All right, but part of the World Methodist Organization.
Correct.
Okay. Let's talk here for a moment about the situation in Ukraine, Odessa. And you said early on, Odessa's protected area.
Hands off, that's right.
It's off?
What? No. I've said all along, it's hands off.
Hands off.
On
But
Odessa.
apparently they hit, of all things, a Russian Orthodox church. In Odessa.
That's right.
Accidentally.
Very, very beautiful, very historic church that everybody's upset over that.
Even the Russians.
Even the Russians are upset over that.
Okay. Ukraine is now, of course, they're potentially not being able to ship its grain out of Odessa and other ports south of that. The Danube apparently has been attacked as well.
Correct.
So what does that mean for Ukraine and its economy?
They're sending grain out by truck and train, but that's not near the same.
Going west, yeah.
Going west. That's not near the same. But at the same time, Russia's willing to give for free grain to African countries.
Again, this is their economy built on sticks because once they give that away, they're not going to get it back, and the cost of that there's an expense to that. Okay, now let's look at the prosecution of the war so far. What are you hearing from those that are? And by the way, we've been focusing on the situation here. Let me just remind folks, we're doing this to raise the awareness on the circumstances in Ukraine, the fact that the Ukrainians need our support, not only military support, but our financial support as well. And Pastor Whaley and First Methodist Church in Morehead City have been working diligently to send, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm being rather conservative in that term because I'm very cognizant of some major gifts that have been given on behalf of the Ukrainian, that we talk about the Ukrainians. And thank you very much to all the generous people out there. If you're thinking about giving a gift, do not hesitate to do so. If you will, do it, of course, by check. Send the check to First Methodist Church, 900 Arundel Street in Morehead City. He's got his phone working. 900 Arundel Street in Morehead City, North Carolina, 28557. That's First Methodist Church, 900 Arundel Street, Morehead City, North Carolina, 28557. And if you will, put on the check, Ukraine. 100% of all that money goes to the recipients, to Ukraine. There are no bank charges. First Citizens Bank has been extremely generous in their efforts to support this. Thank you very much to First Citizens Bank. Shout out to that entire organization. Pastor, obviously we're still sending money to Ukraine. Talking about that, we're in the midst of summer, but now we're starting to look to fall and winter. There's no indication right now that this is going to be shortened at any point. What is needed? What are you hearing? Money, of course, but what are they using it for?
But they're using it, for food, medicine, supplies that they can't get in Ukraine. So that's coming from our sources in Slovakia, in which they're taking trips every week and taking those and providing all those items. The orphanages that we've started because moms and dads have died and the children have been left there. So many orphanages. And so setting those up and getting those organized. The psychology, the mental health issues of all these people losing loved ones in the war, wives losing husbands.
Well, the depression of constant bombardment and fear, too. Yeah.
And it's getting everything ready for the winter. And so some of our funds have gone to rehab some of the locations that's been bombed, not the bad ones that you've seen on TV, but ones that are easily able to house people once again. All those types of things. But they're very, very diligent over there. I get pictures and talk with folks in the field all the time, knowing exactly where the money's going.
With that said, let me just say to you that, and I'm going to put the pastor out on a limb, don't hesitate to give a call to First Methodist Church. If you have an organization that would like to get more information, call First Methodist Church in Morehead City. What is that phone number?
Well, I'll give you my cell phone number.
Okay.
901-337-4178.
Okay. 901.
337-4178.
Okay. And if you want, call the talk station, our studio line, and we will be happy to help you out on that as well. This is an important story. But just to remind you, we're looking to support the non-combatants, the children, the infirm, the elderly, those that cannot leave, those that are stranded in Ukraine, those who refuse to leave, to help support the families, the infirm, the children, the folks that are running those orphanages, and those that are left behind for all intents and purposes. All right. Before we wrap it up with you, let's talk about the circumstance in Belarus and the Wagner Group. You were telling me, and you're showing me that, and ladies and gentlemen, if I'd hold it up to the microphone, but it won't work. Our video is not working here in the studio on the microphone today. You've got Ukraine, and just north of actually almost northwest of Ukraine, sitting above it, is Belarus. And of course, you've got the Wagner Group that's moved into Belarus. What's the fear?
They've moved from southeastern Ukrainian area now to northwest, just about 100 miles from Kyiv, the capital of Kyiv. But what you hear on the news media, including the Ukrainian news media, they're in eastern Belarus. What most Americans don't know, there's an area called Kaliningrad that's fully Russian. You know this better as Prussia when it was German before World War II. Russia took it over at the end of World War II. You've been hearing on the news, and I think you'll hear even more on the news, the tremendous concern that Poland and Lithuania has. And again, this is about 60 miles from Vilnius, where the NATO conference was just held. There's a thin piece of property in which train tracks run through, in which there's trains that go, even to this day, from Belarus to Kaliningrad. They don't stop any place, but they run between those two areas. And now the fear with Poland and Lithuania is that's where the military, the Wagner Group, will be marching that direction. So there's tremendous fear in that area, which very much could affect Camp Lejeune or Cherry Point.
Because we're talking NATO. We're talking
about NATO now. And moving in that area. So there's tremendous publicity, news media on Euronews and all the countries in this area very, very, very concerned on what these coming days might hold.
All right. At this point, it's business as usual. No one knows what to expect.
That's right. Absolutely not.
900 Arundel Street. It's First Methodist Church. 900 Arundel Street, Morehead City, 28557. This is, as much as we do not want to engage in warfare, as much as we would all like to see this settled quickly and peacefully, and of course the real challenge now is, with all the shoulder shrugs and muscle flexing that's taking place, if Ukraine has any desire at this point, you don't see the fight is out of Ukraine at this point. It's still there.
Still there, very much.
I think we need to be aware of that.
They want to win. They feel destined by God to win.
And frankly, I agree with them. I think that's important.
They changed their holidays this year. Christmas is now on December the 25th.
Oh.
Always before it's been on January the 7th because that's the Russian Orthodox day for Christmas. But now all the churches in Ukraine, Christmas, Easter's going to be on the same day that we have it here, not the Orthodox Easter. Right. So that was done this past week.
Outstanding. Pastor, thank you very much for being with us. You've given us even more news than we expected. Thank you. All right, more to come here on Viewpoints. And again, I want to thank Pastor Patrick Whaley and to the audience at large here. You all have been very, very generous with your support. Thank you very much for doing that.